forward and get started. So welcome once again to the Clear Admit Application Insight event. This one is all about deferred enrollment MBA programs. Special welcome to any of you who were with us last week, because this is part of a two-part series where we've been talking with these types of programs with admissions representatives from these schools. Let's get started and just run through some really quick introductions. My name's Graham. I'm going to moderate today's session. I'm the co-founder of Clear Admit, and I'd love to introduce our panelists who we're going to hear from today. We have a great group. I'm very excited. So first up, we have Trey Coles, and he is the Associate Director of Master's Admissions at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Welcome, Trey. Thanks for making time today.
Thank you so much, Graham, and thank you to Clear Admit, and to our attendees, thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Next up, we're also going to hear from Wynn Strugach. She is an Associate Director for Student Recruitment and Admissions at Chicago Booth. Welcome, Wynn. And Wynn was telling me there's snow on the ground in Chicago, so.
Hello, everyone. We do have that snow coming down, looking to get almost a foot of snow today. So hopefully you're all somewhere warm. I want to welcome you to this event and glad that you're spending your time with us in Clear Admit today.
Yeah, thanks, Wynn, for making time. We're also going to hear from Brianna Drew, and she is an Assistant Director of Admissions at Columbia Business School. Welcome, Brianna.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for sharing space today.
It's great to have you. We have next up is Catherine Alford, and she is the Director of Admissions for the Future Year Scholars Program at UVA Darden. Hey, Catherine.
Hey, greetings from Virginia, which is usually a little bit warmer, but we have about 7 inches of snow today. So a bit of an exception.
Yeah, the US is getting a lot of snow at the moment. So there you have it. And last but not least, going alphabetically here, we have Amber Walsh. She's joining us as the Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Yale School of Management in New Haven. Hey, Amber.
Hey, everyone. Thrilled to be here. Looking forward to our discussion.
All right, so I suggest we kind of get started. What I thought we could do just at the outset is I wanted to give our attendees a quick kind of overview of these sort of differences between a deferred MBA or an MBA program that you can apply to while you're still attending school versus the traditional path into a full-time MBA program. And I guess the best way to think of it is sort of as I described it. I mean, the beauty of getting an MBA on a kind of deferred basis is that you get to apply while you're still in school. And usually that means while you're a senior in college or university, although in some instances, and we'll hear more about this, you could even apply if you've just started a master's program directly after you finished undergrad. So you're kind of still a full-time student. You apply. And in most cases, and I say most because there is one exception, and that's Yale, in most cases, you get an acceptance to the program where they sort of save a spot for you. So if you're applying deferred, the business school offers you a seat and says, okay, now go to work for 2 to 5 years, depending on the school. And we have a spot waiting for you. And we'll get into the nuances of how that all works exactly. The one exception is Yale, which has a slightly different path into the MBA where, again, you're still applying while you're in school, but you start right away and you do the first year curriculum immediately when you finish university, and then you do an internship, get some work, and then go back to finish. So I'm sure Amber from Yale will shed more light on the nuances of their program. But the best thing about deferred and these programs in general is just this idea that you're kind of locking in to an MBA at a much earlier point in your career than you would ordinarily. I know, and I said this last week, but I know if this existed when I had personally, been graduating from university, I would have jumped at the chance because I knew about the MBA and I knew I wanted one. But the only option when I was doing this was to just go work for a while and then apply to business school later. So we'll get into all the reasons why that's maybe not as easy of a path into business school as this is. But those are the basics. Let's move on, though, and get some of these roundtable questions to our panelists. So we'll go alphabetically by school. We're going to start with Trey. And I just wondered if you'd give me just one reason that someone might consider deferred enrollment or an early access MBA, and also one reason that maybe somebody shouldn't be thinking of this path in. And I say one reason because we want to hear from our other panelists too. And I think it's going to get harder as we go through and the ideas get scooped up. But let's start with you, Trey.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. Again, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. So I think one reason for students to, consider a deferred MBA program is it allows you to gain like early exposure to an MBA community because you're essentially building a strong foundation and business principles even before entering the workforce. So as a deferred MBA student, you're actually able to like use these years to like gain like some real world experience, but also with the security of knowing that you can return to like a very like structured, high caliber program once you've like started your career. So I like to look at it as a low risk, high reward situation. This is your chance to really apply, and there aren't necessarily any consequences. And if you don't get in, you can apply in a few years as you gain some experience and become a stronger candidate. So again, if you don't get admitted, you still have, 3 to 4 years to utilize and really, work on some of the feedback that you did receive on your denial, but also polish your skills in the time being. And I would say maybe a reason not to consider would just be due to the fact that maybe you have like career uncertainty. You aren't sure of your career path. Maybe you aren't sure what you want to do. And, you might feel like an MBA is somewhat premature for you. And if you want to explore other career opportunities or industries, some careers essentially you don't need an MBA for. So, maybe it's best to work for a few years and apply the traditional way. But I think if you aren't sure, then it might be best to wait a little bit and really gain some like real world experience, and then come back to us once you've gained, again, like 2 to 5 years of full-time work. So.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, appreciate you answering that. We're going to move on and hear from Win, but I did want to mention before we do that the way today's session is structured is that we'll run through a number of questions and hear a lot from our panelists. And then each of our panelists has actually agreed to stick around and jump into a Zoom breakout room for questions. So I do want to ask our audience, just hang on to your questions. You can have them answered individually when you get some time with the school representatives in the breakouts at the end of the main session here. But let's turn to Win at Chicago Booth. Win, any reasons that you think someone might want to consider a deferred enrollment and maybe a reason that they wouldn't?
Yeah, I think it's really a great opportunity if you know that you're looking to get that master's program, that additional business and leadership experience, planning to get a broader view of the business field. After starting in your introductory career path, it's a really great option for just taking some stress out of the next couple of years. On the other hand, if you feel like additional work experience, practical hands-on training and experience is going to make you a better candidate for applying later to these programs, once you have that work experience under your belt, that might be one reason why you'd think about holding off.
Okay, excellent. Let's turn to Brianna at Columbia. What are your thoughts on this one?
Absolutely. I certainly want to echo what my colleagues have said already, but also add that I think that this program is unique because it allows you to have the time to identify your goals, and also an opportunity to explore different industries and different functions at the same time. And I would say, kind of just to echo again what everyone else is saying about why you shouldn't, or maybe take some time to think about it, is if you're unsure of why you want to get an MBA.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Catherine and Amber, I recognize this is getting harder as we go because some of these answers are, but Catherine, what are your thoughts on this over at Darden?
I like to learn from examples. So I would say the deferred enrollment pathway gives you confidence to take some more risks. So one example would be a student I talked to last week who, after a year in corporate America, decided that she wanted to go launch her own startup. And knowing that she had admission to a top MBA program in her back pocket gave her the confidence to leave corporate America to go pursue her startup. Another one of our students was working for Mattel and a brand manager, and felt like she was able to make a lot bolder and riskier decisions than she would have made if she didn't know she could go to business school if the company wasn't happy with her. So it just gives you some confidence in being a little bit more of a risk taker. And then I thought long and hard about who should hold off. And honestly, I know I'm biased, but I don't think anyone should hold off. I think the people who should hold off are the ones who are not on this call. But if you're already starting to think about an MBA as possibly part of your future, I just think the experience of applying to an MBA program at any point is really valuable for you for recruiting and self-awareness and a lot of different things. Because these application fees are waived, for most of them, there are a few application fees. There's minimal expense. And I just think the process is such a strengthening and learning experience that it's good for anyone.
Yeah, excellent. Amber at Yale, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, our program is a little bit different, but I do want to say that I agree, Graham, that if I had had this option before I did my MBA to lock in the possibility of having that spot in an MBA program down the line, I think it's an amazing option. Our program is a little bit different in that we are expecting candidates who really know what they want to do and want to do it right now. So you start your MBA program immediately after undergrad. You get kind of the core curriculum, call it kind of like the management toolkit. And then you have your extended work experience for 1 year up to 5 years. And then you come back for your second year. So it's just a little bit of a nuance of like, I want to lock in the future versus I know what I want to do. I'm right now and I want to get started.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to kind of wrap this up before we move into the next segment, I would add that we heard last week, I think one of the schools on the panel mentioned that taking like standardized tests when you're still in college and in that kind of academic mode is really great, as opposed to waiting 3 years when you're off in the workforce, which is what people have to do when they're applying the regular kind of way. So this idea that you're in academic mode, that actually completing an application to a school, taking a standardized test is a little bit more in your wheelhouse when you're still a student than it might be when you have like that really demanding job somewhere on Wall Street or at a consulting firm or whatever you're doing when you're applying to business school, the sort of old-fashioned way. So I wanted to mention that too. I think what we're going to do now is actually talk a little bit about each of our panelists' programs. But before we do that, I just wanted to mention, just so that our attendees have a sort of ballpark understanding, like what are the basic ingredients that go into an application for a deferred enrollment program. And so obviously there's a form you need to fill out. All these things are done online, as everyone would imagine. There sometimes is a fee, but most times they're waived for deferred. So that's, I think it was Catherine was pointing out, that's like a great perk as well. You have to provide college transcripts, which, when you're a senior, you're providing, your transcript up to the point that you have it, and then you would be required to send in the full transcript when you graduate. Standardized tests are usually required, a resume. Most schools have one or more essays or kind of short answer questions, which we'll talk more about later in this webinar. Schools will ask for recommendations. Interviews are typically by invitation. So, after they've reviewed your file. And some schools will have a language test for international applicants who didn't study their undergraduate degree or aren't studying their undergraduate degree in English. So those are kind of the basic components that go into an application. And I also wanted to give you guys the deadlines. These are all the kind of upcoming deadlines for these programs. So you have some time. If you're on this call, it's actually brilliant because this is exactly where you need to be if you're thinking about applying to these programs. So note these deadlines. They're on the school's websites and also on clearedmit.com. So they're easy to find if you forget. But let's move into the next segment where we get to hear a little bit more about each of our panelists' program. And we're going to start with Trey at Carnegie Mellon Tepper. The idea here is, Trey, is to just tell us like one unique aspect of your program versus the sort of traditional path into the MBA, and also just maybe highlight one piece of the admissions process that applicants should know about.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. One difference from Tepper, and that might be a little bit different than other schools on the call today, is that our program is essentially only available to students that have graduated from a U.S. institution. So you can be an international student that graduated from a U.S. institution, but you're not eligible if you're an international student that graduated from an international institution. So again, we're focusing on students that have graduated from a U.S. institution. And then how that differentiates from our traditional MBA is that we welcome all international students for our traditional full-time MBA, but for deferred MBA, again, you have to graduate from a U.S. institution. I think one of the benefits, of course, that many other schools can attest to, but we really want to focus on the community aspect here at Tepper. And I think that as a deferred MBA student, you'll have access to the broader Tepper community, and that includes you have access to regional happy hours, you have access to our speaker series, you have access to attend any of our campus events. And more importantly, you have access to our student ambassadors, because as a deferred MBA student, and as you transition into a full-time MBA program, I think it's best to have a chance to talk to, a current student in the program that might be, leading case competitions, or, has leadership experience, or has experience, start, in the startup community, or focusing on entrepreneurship. So, having that access to our Tepper community is huge. And I think that's a huge benefit for our students, because, myself, like, I didn't get an MBA. My background was in education. My master's was in higher ed. So having a chance to talk to a current student, more importantly, a Tepper student, will definitely give you more insight, as you make a decision and eventually matriculate to our business school. And more importantly, one aspect of the admissions process that you should be aware of. So as you're interested in Tepper, and look into our programs, and attend any of our info sessions, you'll see my face, many times, and I'll probably be the main lead for the time being, and in the future. But one aspect that I think that I want students to know is that as you're entering our program, and as you have been accepted, there will be a full-time interview, and that a video interview. And that video will be conducted with other members of our admissions teams. You have a chance to chat with maybe some of our leadership, at Tepper, and our executive leaders of admissions, which again gives you more insight and gives you more clarity on making a decision to come to the Tepper School of Business, because our admissions rep have many years of work experience. So having a chance to connect with a member of the AdCom team early will benefit you, but also you'll be prepared for an MBA level interview. So that's what I would say in terms of things you should be aware of.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Trey. Let's turn to Win at Chicago Booth. Same assignment, like give us something that you think is unique about your deferred enrollment program, and then maybe highlight one piece of the admissions process that you think applicants should know.
Yeah, I think one really important piece with our Chicago Booth Scholars program is that students can pursue this either as a full-time program or part-time program. So some students are looking to get that 2 to 3 years experience, and then take a break for a couple years to enter, then really focus in on the master's program, while other students are going to do that full-time program, or I'm sorry, part-time program, whether that's evening or weekend. One thing to consider with that is that international applicants, or those needing a visa, are only going to be eligible for full-time studies, the full-time MBA, not the part-time track. Similar to what Trey mentioned, our deferred MBA students, Chicago Booth Scholars, have really great access early to connections, whether that's with our current students, our alumni. They're able to work with our career development team and really start thinking early about the services that are going to support them in growing in those early stages of their professional career, and then making sure that once they're ready to enter the MBA program at Booth, that they have the experience, the talents, the comfort to come in with confidence, that they are working with their employers who understand that they have this offer, and hopefully they want them to continue to develop and lead within their organizations. They might even offer some employer tuition support to help promote these employees on working while being students within the program. So it's a really great advantage to really start working with those resources, building out your network, thinking about ongoing career development, skill development, while also focusing on your introductory career and thinking about next steps, shadowing others in different career placements, doing informational interviews, and thinking about how you are going to advance yourself.
Got it. Yeah, I think we're going to hear more and more about this, but this idea that you instantly, once you're admitted, become part of this network and have that sort of support system just seems so valuable to me as you kind of embark on the beginning of your career. Let's turn to Brianna at Columbia. Any thoughts on these two questions about something unique about the program and something you want people to know about the process, the admissions process?
Yes, absolutely. So at CBS, as an admitted student through the Deferred Enrollment Program, you also have a lot of access to resources on our campus. But I think that it's great in that it really allows for you to be able to network with other admitted students as well before you actually step foot on campus. So similarly, building upon that community, getting to know current students, getting to know alumni. We have a very vast alumni network at CBS. So definitely making those connections early on and kind of figuring out what it is that everybody else has done thus far. You'll also get to meet with faculty and attend different events that we have on our campus, whether that's distinguished speaker series, fireside chats. So you'll really get the whole gamut of what CBS has to offer as an admitted student through the Deferred Enrollment Program. And then I guess to answer that second question about what it is, about like the advice would be that our interviews are also virtual, and you will have the opportunity to interview, whether it's with an admissions officer, but we also have our current students and our alumni engage in the interview process as well. So that's something also that sets us apart.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, just put you on the spot for 1 second. So do candidates decide whether they, or it's just they're assigned to interview with either, it could be an admissions team member, a current student, or an alum, and that they just sort of get an assigned person or?
They just get an assigned person.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was curious. All right. Catherine at Darden, tell us a little something about your program and then a little admissions tip, if you will.
Okay, well, you had used the word unique, and I'm like, oh man, that's a tough one because so many of these programs have so many similarities. So,
Yeah.
as my colleagues were talking, I was like kind of nodding along. Yes, yes, all of those things. So, all the things that have been mentioned are benefits to how to spend your deferral period. I think the career resources are tremendous. Figuring out what you want to be when you grow up is no easy feat. And so the more support you can have as you navigate that adventure, I think the better. I think that leveraging a lot of how you manage the deferred enrollment process is up to you in terms of leveraging the network. So I really do encourage you to reach out to the people that are in your network, to think about what you might want to be doing next, to do some informational interviews, et cetera. These MBA networks are very powerful. And so, but you get out of it what you put into it. So that's something to keep in mind. One thing I wanted to highlight about Darden's admissions process that might be a little bit different from some of the other schools is the standardized testing requirement. At Darden, we are a little bit test flexible, so we will accept the SAT or ACT in lieu of a GMAT or GRE. The SAT or ACT is not weighted equally. It's not a graduate level test, but it is something that we do accept. That's something that's a little bit different from perhaps some of the other programs.
Okay, got it. Interesting. Let's turn to Amber at Yale. Again, yeah, something unique about your program. This might be easier for you because your program is a little different. And then just something about the admissions process that you want applicants to know.
Yeah, so I think the program itself is really unique. It started in 2001. Basically, our faculty recognized that there are folks that are incredibly ambitious and driven, and they know exactly what they want to do, and they just want to get started. So this was a way for people to jumpstart their management education. So how it works, kind of the requirement is that you have less than 1 year of full-time work experience. So whether you're coming from your master's degree or undergraduate degree, you just don't have a lot of work experience that would normally qualify you for regular full-time MBA admission. So the way that this works is you're applying within this time frame, and you're going to start your MBA education with our core curriculum. So it's a really structured program, 1-year program where you're learning in a cohort with the rest of the MBA students for that first year. I kind of call it our management toolkit. You're getting this foundational education in management, and you're recruiting through our career development office. You're part of all of the professional clubs, whether it's the consulting club or the finance club or the entrepreneurship club, all of these places where you're getting support from current students, as well as having access to the alumni network, both at the School of Management and broader Yale community. And you're having all of these resources to kind of land that work experience, that first work experience, where you can stay. Some people will do a series of short-term internships. Some people will be working on their startups. Some people will work for up to 5 years and then come back for the second year of your MBA education, which is for us is entirely elective. So this is where you've learned from your work experiences, you know where you want to build skills, you know about spaces that you want to learn more about, and you're able to really sculpt your MBA into what you need at that point in time. So I think it's a great opportunity for people that are in that kind of category of like, I know what I want to do and I want to start it now and kind of accelerate my career in that direction. The other thing that I would say in terms of the application, because folks are early career, so you don't have that work experience that typical MBA students would have. We really tried to make our application broad enough where you can highlight your leadership in various spaces. So whether it's your internships, whether it's some research projects that you've been doing, whether you have been a TA, whether you've taken on leadership roles in your club or in your community. Maybe you've had some early entrepreneurial experiences already. So we try to give you space within the application to highlight all of those pieces of your experience so that you can have the strongest application possible.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing. So what we're gonna do now is dive into something that I think is probably on a lot of potential candidate here, the minds of everyone, and that is the kind of essays and some of the actual application components. And what we'll do in this segment is each of our panelists is going to speak about one of their school's kind of essay questions or short answers or one of these components relating to essays, and they're just going to tell us a little bit about why why does their admissions team ask the question, and what are they kind of looking for when they read the candidate's response, and any advice that they have. And if there's time, I have some follow-up questions that I might ask probably about the question that the panelist doesn't speak to. So let's start again. We'll go alphabetical. We'll start with Trey. So yeah, just pick one of these and tell us your thoughts on it, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, sure. So I'll focus on one of our essay questions that you can complete within 300 to 500 words is, why is our Tepper Future Business Leaders format a good fit for your MBA program? And essentially when reading applications and reviewing essays, there are some talking points that we look for in terms of, to ensure that you are a good fit for our program. And I think, most schools on the panel today, we're going to speak to like the academic, background. So, to be a good fit, or maybe a strong academic characteristic would be to have a strong academic background, demonstrate leadership skills, also have an interest in technology and data-driven decision-making. And then finally, a clear sense of your career goals. So like diving into like the academic portion, if you've demonstrated high academic achievement throughout your undergrad, especially in some of your quantitative courses, such as accounting, finance, some of your stats courses, or if you've had an analytical background, then you'll be well prepared for our business program at Tepper, because it is extremely, rigorous and quantitative, just like many others. So that's one of the first things we look at in terms of just just showcasing your academic ability. But then secondly, we really, focus on the leadership component, and the Tepper MBA really emphasizes developing leaders here on campus. And if you're passionate about growing as a leader, then you'll be a good fit for our business school, because at Tepper, and one of the best parts about the program and essentially about our business school is that we have an accelerated leadership center, and essentially that focuses on like personalized coaching for accelerated growth, but also gives you opportunity to gain that self-awareness to lead a diverse team, but also shows that leadership is very important to be a part of our program. As you know, Tepper is extremely focused on technology, data analytics, operations management. So if you have a strong interest in those fields, whether through coursework or through internships, or even independent learning, then, it shows that Tepper would align well with your passions as well. And then finally, again, we really are looking for a clear sense of your career goals. And at times that might seem self-explanatory, but, we want to ensure that our program, is a good fit for you, because successful students are successful alums, and we want to make sure that, you know, we are able to put you in a great position post-graduation, and that our career team can, of course, help you land your, you know, ideal career post-MBA. So we're really focused on your career goals, and they may change. And that's one thing I really want to stress to all the students on the call today, is that, you know, everybody on the panel has been in higher ed and has a chance to interview students, and your career goals are going to change a lot. I don't know how many times students have come in and said, I want to work in consulting, I want to work for one of the big fours. And then by the time they graduate, they've pivoted, you know, tremendously into other avenues or other functions. So again, have a clear sense. You don't have to have everything mapped out perfectly in a sequence, but as long as you have a good idea of what you want to accomplish in your career, and how, you know, Tepper can help you reach those goals, then I think it'll be perfectly fine. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a useful exercise to, to think about your career path, right? So even if you may pivot down the road, something happens, you fall in love with some other subject area or whatever, it's a really good exercise to go through this process. But I do want to ask you a question, which is, you have this short answer where it's sort of like, what are your post-undergraduate career plans? What company are you joining? What will be your
Yeah.
role? And so I can see how, if I'm a senior and I just did a summer internship over the summer and I've got my job already lined up for post graduation because I got an offer from that internship to go full time. That's this is easy to answer, but like there are many seniors who haven't yet, figured out exactly what they're going to do. I mean, they may have
Sure.
aspirations, but they don't yet have that job lined up. How do they answer this question? Any advice there?
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. And I think it ties back just to my earlier point, is that you have to have at least like a clear sense. So like maybe have an idea of like where you would like to work at, or maybe places where you plan on interviewing, or maybe walk us through like some of your internships and things that you've accomplished in your career, or maybe tell us maybe in the next 2 years or so, like what role you plan to accomplish. And essentially, I didn't mention earlier is that one part of our program that, of course, many other schools probably do as well, is that we'll be having check-ins. So typically check-ins, in the summertime, but also in the fall. And more importantly, before you matriculate, to kind of learn more about, where did you end up going, and what are some things you worked on, or what are some maybe leadership skills or certification that you've accomplished or that you've completed, during the interim. So again, you don't have to have your career goals perfectly mapped out, but as long as you have a very broad idea and you're able to articulate how Tepper can help you reach those goals, then I think you'll be in great shape for our program.
Okay. Yeah, that's excellent. And you're making a great point, which we didn't touch on earlier, which is, yeah, there are these check-ins, so if you get a seat, if you're admitted to Tepper or any of the schools on the panel, where you're deferring, usually, yeah, there's kind of at least an annual check-in, and you need to tell the school that you're going to matriculate pretty, well in advance so that they can sort of be ready for you to show up when classes start and things. So yeah, there's definitely someone looking after you. Let's turn now to Win at Chicago booth. And same thing, we've got a screen here or a slide with your kind of questions. So pick one of them and tell us a little bit about why you ask it, what you're looking for.
I'm going to go with that first essay question. How will Booth MBA help you to achieve your immediate and long-term post-MBA career goals? And one of the things I like to really point out with this question is that we don't define what long-term and immediate are, because that might look really different from you. Maybe you already have a startup, or you're working with a business hoping to continue in an internship placement. We want to get a sense really through the application of your goals, your passions, your interests. And that leads more into the second question as well. We want you to be authentic, to really let us know what in your background, your history, and your prior studies have prepared you to succeed in this program, but also what are you looking to develop from this program? What are you going to be adding to the dialogue in the classroom, the diversity of our class and our incoming cohort? We're also looking at your communication skills. Across these, we want to share or see that you are able to clearly and concisely share with us your goals, whether you are clear on what those are, or whether it's something that you're looking to further develop out with our career development team. We want to know that you are thinking ahead, again, both in the short term and the long term, to where you want to go and what are the particular school-specific booth resources that are going to help you towards reaching those career goals.
Okay, excellent. I have a follow-up, which is, the second essay where you're asking about, people's life or interests or things that they're going to bring outside of academics or, or any work experience they've had. There seems like there's ample space because it's a 250 word minimum, right? So someone could write a little bit. So is it okay for someone to talk about multiple kind of activities? Like, let's say I'm a marathon runner, but also really active in some volunteer work on my campus as well. Like, can I talk about multiple things in this essay, or should it be more focused on a single thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have purposefully given minimal instruction on kind of format for these. So whether you want to provide kind of multiple short answers or kind of a longer, more cohesive and comprehensive essay, I think that's perfectly okay. It's going to show us more about your style, and again, kind of your background and how you choose to express yourself. We also offer a supplemental essay, optional, but that's a chance to really tell us more if there are points that have not been expressed elsewhere in your application that you think the admissions committee should really know about. If there are obstacles you've had to overcome, maybe weaker grades or trends in your GPA, that's a really great place to tell us more about that and how you plan to make sure that you're going to be successful when you come into the graduate program.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's turn now to Brianna at Columbia. What about for you? Which one of these do you want to speak to?
Absolutely. So I think that the essay that I want to speak to is about community. So essay number 2. So community is an integral part of the CBS experience. We want to know that you want to contribute not just to our campus community, but also the community at large. So this prompt kind of allows for us to be able to see what you're passionate about outside of just academics and test scores. And it makes the application process a bit more personable and allowing for the candidate to be really thoughtful and reflective of their undergraduate experience while crafting their response. So I think that this is really an opportunity for you to, again, really think about what it is that you like to do outside of just, being in classes, and then really seeing about like if there's volunteer opportunities that maybe you've been engaged in actively, if there's undergraduate campus clubs that you've been a part of that have really, like maybe even on an e-board, that have really spoken to you. There are things that really speak to you outside of just, your classes. We really want to know about that and just what makes you you.
Okay. And I do want to, so similar to what I was asking, when I'm kind of curious about this because here it says discuss one experience or situation, where you feel you contributed. And so I'm assuming that you really want kind of a single sort of story here. And I guess the word count probably requires that because it's not a
Yes.
ton of words, right? Okay. Uh, Similarly, I had another question about that short answer that's at the top of the screen. Any advice on this? Because 50 characters, I actually was, I had to kind of do a little math on this, but that's sort of a sentence or two, right? It's like, it's not a lot of space. And so I could see if I have a job already lined up, it's easy, right? I'm like, I'm working at, Microsoft and this is my job, or this is my role. But if you don't yet know, like, so any advice on like how to, be concise here?
Absolutely, yes. So that's the key word I would say is concise. But it's where if you if you don't necessarily have a job offer lined up, I think kind of going along with what my colleagues have spoken to, like having that really clear idea of where you envision yourself in the long term as well as in the short term, is going to be really crucial. If there's an internship that maybe you have, or an experience that you've had that will really speak to that, I think that would be the best way to kind of hone in on that and share that with us.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's turn to Catherine at Darden. So the same assignment for you, Catherine. We got your kind of questions up on screen. So take us through one of them.
Yeah. So first, a little essay tip. I would encourage people to think less about what you think schools are looking to hear about you and spend a little bit more time in self-reflection and really understanding who you are, the choices you've made, what they say about your interests and your strengths, because that's what schools are using these essay questions to get at the end of the day. The question that I will talk about is around the second one, inclusive impact, asking you to provide an example of creating or promoting an inclusive impact in the organizations you've been a part of. Darden is a very diverse community, as are all top MBA programs, and it's important that the students we admit are interested and excited to learn from classmates whose backgrounds differ from theirs in a variety of different ways. And so we are asking for you to provide us with an example of a time where you've been a part of one of those sorts of communities and what you've done to help build and create a more inclusive space.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess I want to turn and ask you about this first question. Um, I guess, this is really open-ended, right? I mean, and that's what's great about it. But I was wondering, so when someone has been working for 4 years and is applying to the sort of traditional MBA, they have a wealth of experience to sort of draw upon. But when someone's still in university, I sort of wondered, like, how far back can someone go? You would never, if you've worked for 4 years, you're not going to reach back into high school to talk about some experience you had because you have so many things that have happened since. But for someone who's a senior in college, is there sort of, I mean, would you still advise like staying, keeping to sort of stuff that happened, at the sort of university level, or can they, if there's something important that happened when they were young, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's totally up to the students, but I think of this as our personality question. What are
Hmm.
you like to work with? You're going to be spending a lot of time with the members on your learning team, getting ready for class, et cetera. Sometimes students will choose to say, hey, I love bringing community together. I'm going to be the person who brings cupcakes to learning team meetings and invites everyone over to my apartment for a celebratory dinner after exams, or I'm going to be the team member that fills this role and kind of draws on a story from their past that demonstrates that they are that type of person.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I appreciate you shedding some light on that. And I will say, Catherine, the advice that you gave at the outset about you don't overthink this stuff and try to write what what you suspect the committee wants to read, because that never works. And it's just everyone has a unique story to tell, and they should tell it. All right, let's turn to Amber at Yale. Same assignment, Amber. Take us through one of your you really just have this one essay, but it has like these three paths. So I don't, just maybe speak to this. Like, why did you guys create this, and why the paths and everything?
Yeah, so this goes back to my comment earlier. Like, we want to give people the space to really express themselves. So you'll see that there's kind of commonality between the three. And sometimes, depending on what you want to talk about, you could use one or the other. But getting down to why we chose this, we're really getting to, and I think it's related to our values. We're a mission-driven, value-led school. Our mission is educating leaders for business and society. And we want to understand a little bit more about you and your values, what's important to you. So this is a way of getting to that space. So we're asking about, what's the biggest commitment you've ever made? A community that's important to you and how you contributed, or the most significant challenge you face. So I do want to flag, like, these are all questions about something that's happened or at least started in the past. We're looking for you to tell us, like, not so much what's important is not so much the actual topic or the challenge or commitment you take, but your approach and behaviors towards that commitment. Because we believe that your past behaviors are very predictive of your future behavior. So how have you approached something that's important to you? And I love Catherine's advice, like, don't overthink it. Like, if we were sitting together at lunch and I asked you, what's the biggest commitment you've ever made? And I love reading these because there's such a variety. And people often ask me, like, how do I stand out? How do I do this? And it's really so personal that that's not the approach that we want you to take. We want you to answer the question in a way that's personal to you. Probably something will come up and that's the right topic for you. And then what I would suggest is be detailed in there and be concrete about, I made this commitment for this reason, and these are the steps I took towards that commitment or challenge, or these are the things, the ways that these are the ways that I interacted with the community that was important to me, and kind of lay that out for us. And the other thing that I'll say is that it doesn't have to be a perfect bow where you took on this challenge and commitment and it was perfect and you solved everything and everything was perfectly resolved at the end. Sometimes our best lessons are in failures too. So how do we readjust? How do we adapt our commitments and or adapt to challenges as we're going through them? So all of those things can be really relevant and add another element to your application that isn't easy to cover elsewhere. This is really more about your own story about something that's important to you.
Okay. So I have one follow-up and I'll just keep it brief. But I was sort of wondering, and I think this probably occurs to a lot of people, but there might be, when people think about business school, this tendency to say, well, if I'm going to pick one of these three topics, I need to center it around something businessy, like a job internship I had, or, a commitment to something career related. But I'm assuming that that's not that sort of, you could talk about something personal or professional. It doesn't have to be kind of businessy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this goes for all of us. You want to think about your application and the real estate in there. So as much as possible, tell us something that we wouldn't see elsewhere. So, maybe the biggest commitment or challenge was something work related, but you want to definitely go beyond what we can read about in your essay. We definitely want to go beyond what your recommender is already going to tell us. So, kind of thinking about that, of like, what is something new that you can use this space to tell us about?
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So I see we're getting a couple of questions in the chat. And I want to encourage folks to just hang on to your questions, because each of our panelists is going to bounce off into an individual Zoom breakout in a few moments. We have one more set of questions that we're going to run through with our panelists. And this is our kind of fun lightning round. And so we'll go back alphabetical. So we'll start with Trey. What's your favorite part? We'll just keep these really brief, guys. What's your favorite part about reading deferred enrollment applications?
Sure, Graham, if I can say, it has been nice going first. I'm not gonna lie, so I'm able to get my answer out, and something that's been a nice factor. No, the best part about reading deferred applications is, of course, I think learning about the students that are applying. Obviously, I think that we have a section on our application at Tepper, and it essentially asks, like, tell us a fun fact about yourself. And within the last week or two, I've learned that students have sang opera in New York City, or I've had students that sang the national anthem at Pittsburgh Pirates games, students that traveled to India and Africa. So I think it's great to hear about all the amazing things that students have accomplished, and it's inspiring. So that's probably my favorite thing. So.
All right. Wynn, how about you? Something that you like about reading these applications?
Really finding out about the quality of experience that our prospective students have. They are really engaged, they are curious, they have these plans for the future, that they are really proactive in making sure that they are going to reach their goals. So it is really inspiring and exciting to get to see the type of work that candidates for this type of program have done, and also the type of work and experiences that they are looking to have over the next few years.
Okay. Brianna, how about you?
Yeah, I would say my favorite part is definitely learning about the journey of the students, especially when they're making pivots in their career. Maybe they come from non-traditional backgrounds and decide that the MBA is something that they're hoping to pursue. I really love learning about that and how they're going to utilize their MBAs to make an impact on society.
All right, Catherine.
I think one of the most rewarding things about being in the roles that we're in is that we are representing these great schools that are really able to help people achieve their goals and really make positive impacts on the world. And so the best part about reading these applications is seeing this new generation of future leaders and the things that they care about and the places that they want to make an impact and how they want to improve the future for the people behind them. It makes you feel like every day that you're doing good work and are proud of the product you stand by and the way you're able to help people do great things.
All right. Amber, how about you? Something that you like about reading the Silver Scholars applications?
I just, kind of to back up what my colleagues have said. I mean, I just find reading these applications really inspiring. I often wonder how people have enough time in the day to do all that they're doing. I do think that I get excited about what you will be able to accomplish out in the real world. And I think all of us who are in this profession, like we're excited for you and rooting you on through that process. So it's a pleasure to read. You're all very different, and I think that's okay. And I hope that you all embrace that.
Yeah. All right. Let's stay with you, Amber, for our next lightning round question. We'll just go backwards now through the alphabet. Your favorite secret spot on campus?
Oh my goodness. Well, Yale is an absolutely beautiful campus. So there's lots of little gardens and nooks and places to go. In terms of a secret spot on campus, I really love the Beinecke Rare Books Library. If you have a chance, like look at it, it is a building that is, the exterior is entirely translucent marble, and it is just absolutely gorgeous inside. And I don't know, every time I go there, I feel inspired.
I can vouch for that. I've been to that building. It is amazing. So if you're ever on Yale's campus, check it out. Let's see. So going backwards, Catherine, a spot on UVA's campus that you like.
I mean, I think you have to go with the Rotunda. So the Rotunda is at the heart of the University of Virginia. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And when I was studying at the University of Virginia, it was closed off to students, and it is now open, and students are encouraged to spend time studying there, and it's gorgeous. So that would be my favorite spot right
Wow.
now.
All right. Brianna?
Yes, so my favorite spot is actually Kravis Hall on Manhattanville's campus. There's 10 floors, so if you go to the top, there's actually a little terrace. Obviously, you don't want to go on it right now because it's cold out, but when the weather gets nice, you can go and outside on the terrace, and it overlooks the Hudson River and the George Washington Bridge. So that's my favorite spot.
Excellent. Win?
Similar, our Gleacher Center campus, our Gleacher Center building and our downtown campus is right on the Chicago River Walk. So we have different study halls and break rooms on the end of each floor of our building that are overlooking the river. There's even a little patio out on the first floor off our cafeteria. So it's a beautiful spot, whether you want to stay in the building or whether it's a little bit nicer and you want to hop outside and just wander along the river walk. Beautiful place to be in the 8 lovely months here in Chicago.
And I think that behind you as your desktop or background image, that's that building, right? I believe so. Or it's,
Sure.
yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Last but not least, Trey, a spot that you like on the campus of Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say our Tepper building, which is brand new, and it's not a secret, but it was built in 2018, and it's truly a beautiful, beautiful building, very open. And I'm a big gym guy, so there's a gym on the first floor, and there's a lot of great food spots. But I also love ramen, so there's a Revolution noodle spot on campus that's really good. So if for any of my ramen fans who like noodles and vegetables, it's a good spot to go to. So
all right. Excellent. Appreciate you guys shedding some light on these little, kind of secret campus spots, or maybe not so secret, but just places not to miss when people come to visit. So, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask our panelists. Well, first, I'd like to thank our panelists. You guys have been fantastic. We're going to send you guys backstage as we prepare the breakout rooms so that our attendees can come and hang out with y'all. So if you'll just kind of send yourselves backstage, we'll give you a minute or two to take a drink. But yeah, appreciate you guys making time. Now, everyone still here, our attendees, I want to thank you all. I mean, this has been terrific. It's always great to see such a nice turnout. What we're going to do next is we're going to give you guys, we're going to open up breakout rooms. So there'll be one for each school. And the way that it works is you can kind of bounce around. You can only be in one room at once, but you can go and if you want to ask Trey a question at Tepper and then bounce over to ask Amber something at Yale, very easy to do. So we're going to open those rooms in a second. I did want to just let everyone know that clearadmit.com is a really good resource as you go through this process. Everything on our site's free. There's lots of advice about, the admissions process. There's a weekly podcast that we run. You can even get your profile reviewed if you post your stats on ApplyWire. We have archives with like what it's like to interview at these schools. So there's lots of good free resources on our site. I encourage you to avail yourselves of those resources. And I'd also like to mention that we're going to continue with more webinars this month. in a slightly different topic area, but we're going to actually talk with a number of masters in management schools the next 2 Wednesdays as well. So you can get information about that on our website in case you're interested in a master's in management, which is a different thing a little bit than an MBA. But in the meantime, I think we're probably ready to open up the breakouts. And yeah, please take your questions. This is a great opportunity that y'all have to have a little bit of time with our panelists and get some of those questions answered. But thank you so much for making time for the main session. And yeah, we'll send you off into the breakouts now. So enjoy.